All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Carla Swiryn, founder of DateSpot. You can find us at datespot.love. I am also a matchmaker, and I help people find love and keep love through a wide variety of various services. Um, One thing that isn't really talked about a lot in relationships, dating, and love, but is super important is sex. And I'm super excited to have a conversation about it today, and a conversation about it not with myself, but with one of my favorite partners in this realm specifically. So, very excited to have Dr. Allison Ash. She is the founder of TurnOn.love, and she's a trauma informed sex and intimacy coach and educator. Um, I've actually taken personally a course of hers called How to Pick Your Partner, and I found it super interesting and fascinating. And it was actually really helpful in how I match. So, Allie, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Carla. It's great to be here and to chat with you today.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We have a lot to cover in terms of questions. I have a bunch of questions for you. So, can we jump in?
That'd be great. Let's do it.
Okay. Um, First, tell us a bit about the work that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I offer a wide range of workshops and courses and also offer coaching for individuals, couples, and groups to help folks learn how to create and sustain emotional, physical, and sexual intimacy. Intimacy is a relational skill, and like any skill, it's something that we can learn and practice. And yeah, we're not really taught how to do that. And so, oftentimes, when I'm working with clients, I'm giving them a two-prong approach. And one of those is to do a lot of skills-based work. We're not taught the skills of intimacy, and when we know them, we can feel confident pursuing our desires, and that's really empowering. And then the other avenue that I take with my clients is exploring some of the deeper processes that are happening underneath the surface that might become obstacles for them in creating the kinds of relationships that they want. So, places where shame or fear or embarrassment are lurking that can prevent us from being able to pursue our desires, from being able to be vulnerable, lean into connection, and create secure relationships, all sorts of things that we're kind of tackling it from both ends at the same time.
Right, right. Getting out of our own way, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What drew you to move into education and coaching, and specifically the sex and intimacy realm?
Yeah. Well, I grew up with not having much intimacy modeled for me, and I knew that I wanted to have intimacy in my life. I remember that one of my biggest fears was dying a virgin. I didn't want to have sex, but I just wanted to live long enough to get to have the experience. I just knew that there was something about relationships and intimacy that was missing in my family structure and that I deeply craved. And I think that whenever you have to learn something, because also I'll add that my parents didn't have very many friends. So it wasn't really modeled for me very much anywhere in my life. I didn't have these kind of adult examples of what relationships and intimacy could look like. And so I think that whenever you have to learn something that other people kind of, it becomes ingrained habitually, they just learn in this very innate way. When you have to learn it in a way that's not innate, you get very good at explaining it to other people, right? Because I know what it's like to not be able to have intimacy and not be able to sustain relationships and feel desperately alone and not enough and too much and some odd combination of the both at the same time. And I also know how to work through that. And I think being able to offer that to other people is really empowering for me and gratifying for all of the trials and tribulations I know I've gone through to get to where I am.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
What would you say differentiates you from any other sex and intimacy coach?
I have a pretty diverse background that I draw from. So I have a PhD in sociology from Stanford, where I specialized in sex, gender, and sexuality, and really understanding how these are happening at a societal level and not just an interpersonal level. And what are the facets of society, the various structures that we're all operating in that impact our experiences in intimacy. Because I think that in a patriarchal society, everybody is disempowered when it comes to sex and intimacy, men, women, and folks of all genders. And and so I think that understanding the forces that are at play and then being able to describe those to my clients is so normalizing.
Mhm.
And it really helps to de-shamify some of these experiences because we realize that we're not alone in it. It's not something that means that we're bad or wrong or faulty. It's just we're operating under these conditions that make it really hard to be a human and have love in our lives. And then alongside with that, I come in with a lot of training around sex and intimacy coaching. And I also come in with training around somatic psychotherapy and body-centered trauma work. And I think that having all of those different access points in my education is really important because I'm working with folks that are having so many different issues. And I think that trauma is just really pervasive, and trauma can be very, very broadly defined. I mean, many experiences of rejection, feeling a lot of body shame, having your body not work in the way that you want it to work, whether that's erectile dysfunction or anorgasmia, like all of these experiences can lead to trauma. And so I think it's very important to know on an individual level, but also know on a societal level how to address some of these issues.
Yeah. Do you think do you think people can overcome trauma?
Oh yeah, 100%. I know that I have in my life. And I think that one of the things that's so beautiful, this kind of silver lining of trauma, is post-traumatic growth, which is this experience of that on the other side of our traumatic experiences. The growth that it actually demands of us so often is
Mhm.
some of the most powerful experiences of our life. And the research shows that most people, once they're on the other side of healing their trauma, and I think, trauma always kind of lurks in the background. So I don't think that it's like black and white, not healed, healed. But, it's a process. And once people are feeling like they're not so at the mercy of their traumatic experiences, most people don't want to take them back. They wouldn't wish it on anybody else. They never want to go through it again, but they realize they wouldn't be who they are without those experiences, and they love who they are. They really value the growth that came from that. So yes, we certainly can heal from our trauma, and there's great benefit in doing so.
What's one of the most common challenges your clients have when it comes to having good sex or great sex?
I would say that I think a really common thing that affects people of all genders and all locations, but I have to say, particularly in the Bay Area, is this challenge of getting out of your head and into your body. And I think that it makes sense because we live in a society that really prizes us for being logical and rational and practical and heady, analytical. That's why I said, especially in the Bay Area, because I think those values are really emphasized here.
Definitely.
And it's at the expense of really valuing the wisdom of the body. I like to say that we speak in three languages. We speak in the language of thoughts, sensations, and emotions. And our thoughts come from our brain, and our sensations and our emotions come from our body. And there's so much wisdom. And we, A, oftentimes don't know how to listen to those languages, or B, we don't know how to interpret them and make sense of it. And so learning how to inhabit your body, how to understand what your sensations and your emotional experience is like, and how they relate. And then, of course, that's so directly tied to desire and pleasure because desire and pleasure live in the body. And if you're not inhabiting your bodily sensations, you're trying to analyze your way through your desires and through your yeses and nos and through your wants and through all of these things that are actually quite visceral and somatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
And you
Mhm.
have a workshop too that isn't it called like literally get out of your head in bed, something like
Yes, it is. And I created it because it's such a pervasive issue.
that?
Yeah, and I think that there are these, again, embodiment is a skill, just like intimacy. And so teaching people the fundamentals of how to be in their body, that's so important for navigating erectile dysfunction, navigating anorgasmia, anxiety, um, uh, uh, all of these things where you get stuck in your head and then you create a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Right.
right?
What are some, another commonality question, what are some common first date mistakes and what can folks do to avoid them?
Yeah. Well, I would say in the pre-COVID days, one of the most common mistakes I saw is that people would have these really in-depth first dates without having much interaction ahead of time.
Mm.
And I think that that is really exhausting and can oftentimes be challenging because the thing is that you're going to have a lot of experiences dating where you're not feeling the person. That's pretty common. You're going to have to go through a lot of misses before you find your catch.
Sure.
And if every miss is a 2 or 3 hour date, I mean, who has the capacity, the resources, the energy for that? And so I think it's really helpful to keep first dates relatively short and use them to suss out if there's chemistry and attraction and if the flow is there. And just, it's like a palate wetter to see if you're wanting more. And I think when we think about that in the days of COVID, um, you know, I think one of the blessings of COVID is that it's kind of introduced this 1950s style of dating again, where we slowed down a lot. And so I think now first dates are oftentimes virtual or maybe like a social distance walk or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really wonderful because they tend to be a little bit shorter and there's more capacity to end when you want to and not feel like you're stuck in a dynamic that isn't fulfilling for you. Um, and it just offers us an opportunity to slow down and really kind of connect on a more emotional level, which I think I know at least a lot of my clients are benefiting from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's true, and it aligns with the way that a lot of matchmakers operate. I know myself, I generally recommend 30 to 60 minutes. I mean, of course, clients, if they really want to, they can go less or more, but generally, within 30 to 60 minutes,
Hmm.
you have enough information to know, do you want to see this person again? First date is really, do you want to get to know this person better? It's not, am I making a decision about whether this person is going to be my life partner on the first date,
That's
right?
right.
That's too
That's right.
much pressure, right? And then what ends up happening if you ended at 30, 45, or 60 minutes is you can say, I had a really good time. I'd love to do this again sometime. You're letting them know you're interested, but you're not giving away so much information that you're leaving on a high note and
Hmm.
making the person want more.
Yeah, leaving them wanting more. I love that. That's such good advice. I also think that and it piggybacks right alongside with that is another big mistake I see folks doing is they have their internal or maybe sometimes even externally written list of like interview questions,
Right.
or sometimes it's a checklist of things that they want to figure out.
Oh,
And and they're very married to getting all of that information on the first date,
yeah.
and it
Yeah.
can feel very much like an interview. And it misses the interplay of both asking questions and displaying curiosity, but also volunteering information and realizing that you're wanting to let this other person get a sense of who you are, just like you're trying to get a sense of them.
Right.
And so really noticing how you can, even if they're asking lots of questions of you, make sure that you can get a redirect in there, or if they're not asking a lot of questions of you, figuring out how you can insert something that's like, oh yeah, and this is how it resonates or applies to me. But just like, or if you notice you're asking lots of questions, maybe answer your own question too. I'm really curious to know about your hobbies. I'm really into photography and this and that. And I'd be happy to share more about them if you're curious. And I'm just really interested to know what fascinates you.
Yeah. I love it. I think there, it sort of reminds me of you talking about being in your body, living in your body, and
Hmm.
being able to identify what is happening in your body and express that. I think when you have your checklist of all of these questions, I mean, it's great actually to have a question or two in your back pocket, right?
Hmm. Yes,
But when you
definitely.
have it too structured, then you're not living in the present so much. you're focused on questions that are about the past, or you're focused on questions about the future. And so you miss the opportunity to enjoy the moment and be in the moment and kind of have that shared experience of the present.
That's right. And folks get so focused on this concrete practical information that they're forgetting about this energetic connection that's being created with somebody. And to feed that, it's almost like a flow state. It's a co-created flow state that you're seeking to have. And
Mhm.
that has to come from things having some space to unfold organically.
We kind of touched on this, but I'll ask it a little more directly. How has the pandemic affected dating for your clients? If I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's affected them in a couple of different ways, right? I've seen a lot of clients kind of settle down what I call the Peter Pan syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
is the well, but I can't really choose, and I don't know, and maybe something else is around the corner, and I want more, 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 and this kind of like this uh, cost benefit analysis where that always shakes out to more is better,
Do you think
and
that happens more, that syndrome is more prevalent in big cities?
I think it definitely is, and also in more liberal cities. Cities where there's a later age at first marriage and children and things like that. Definitely. Um, and and also I think it's really common here in the Bay Area because there's so many people that practice non-monogamy.
Right.
And I don't think that's always the case for people who practice non-monogamy, let me be clear. But I think that especially when people are first exploring it and trying it out and wanting to understand if non-monogamy works for them, it kind of can really coincide with this, it's scary to settle down feeling.
Mhm.
And I think what the pandemic has done for so many people has kind of shaken up that cost benefit analysis so that they're really seeing what the benefit is of having partnership, of having sustaining connection, deep intimacy, a go to person,
Right.
a clear sense of your pod, right?
Yeah.
and and so I think that that's changed the way that people are relating to dating.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
Any tips for dating during the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think that there's this bind between um, needing, on one hand, to somewhat go slow, right? Because you want to make sure that you're following COVID safety protocols. If you are going to merge your pods and have close those 6 feet, right, as they say, I would advocate for having a really comprehensive conversation about exposure level and safety protocols and risk tolerance. It's almost like a safer sex conversation around, and in fact, it can dovetail really well into both. But I think that because there is this in-depth conversation that I think is warranted before you decide to make contact with somebody during a pandemic, it really is exaggerating this need for slowing down, having more virtual dates and social distance dates and creating connection and so that you can have those kinds of conversations around is it safe for us to connect physically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, the other half of the bind is that once you decide that you want to connect, right? I know at least for a lot of my clients, they're only going to be connecting with one person because of COVID safety. They don't want to have lots of exposure. And
Mhm.
so then it becomes a sense of intense pressure of like, oh no, I have to figure out, is this the person that I want to close 6 feet with?
Yeah.
It kind of creates this pressure to figure out where you're going before it might feel natural to do so. And there's a tension there. And
Mhm.
so I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give to navigate that is first of all, I always think one of the best ways to create safety is to name the elephant in the room. So talk about the bind. Like, oh yeah, I feel like this need to go safe or slow or this desire to go slow in order to feel safe.
Mhm.
Um, and yet there's also this sense of pressure because I really do want to explore connection and intimacy with you. And I'm wondering what your thoughts and your feelings are, and what we can do to have each other feel safe, but also trying to reduce the pressure.
Right. And it's kind of a self-selecting process, right? If you're having these serious conversations, sort of like a safe sex conversation, if someone's not willing to meet you at that level and they're gonna walk, great. You just
Mhm.
got rid of someone who isn't on your same page.
Yeah, it does work as a good filter, not and in part maybe for shared values, but also in part around communication capacity, self-awareness, ability to negotiate and come up with agreements, to honor boundaries and be able to assert their own boundaries and needs. I mean, these are like fundamental relational skills. It's a great way to test the waters.
Yeah, so great. Um, so I know you have a ton of various workshops and programming recorded and whatnot. Um, what are some of your current offerings? Can you share?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Um, Coming up later this month, I have my 10-week course called Sexual and Emotional Intimacy Skills. It's a course that I've taught at Stanford for the past few academic years, and I'm so delighted to get to take it out of academia and offer it to a broader audience. It combines lecture, discussion, optional discussion groups, and exercises so that you can really learn these intimacy skills and practice integrating them. And then there's going to be a wonderful community of folks that are going to be coming out of this. So I'm really looking forward to it. There's a comprehensive syllabus for that on my website, which is turnon.love. And then, yeah, I also teach maybe about 15 different workshops at this point. And because of the pandemic, I've been able to record them all. And so I have them all available for folks immediately, whoever wants them. They're there for downloading. And they cover topics like navigating non monogamy, increasing sexual pleasure, healing from ruptures and disagreements in your relationships, exploring fantasies. I mean, the list just goes on.
Love it. I'm so excited to be sharing this with DateSpot members and
Yeah.
viewers. So
Yeah.
thank you.
And then I also work with individuals and couples. So if you have any date spot members out there that are needing some support figuring out how do I flirt, or how do I know if somebody's flirting with me, or I need some help initiating, or I feel like I always let all these opportunities pass by and I'm so tired of not knowing how to act on my desires, and or like, oh, I feel like I can get to the first and second date, but I don't know why I'm never able to get past that point. I love to work with individuals, helping them learn how to create connection and intimacy that's sustaining.
So you can really be helping people at any stage
That's right.
from totally single to married.
That's right. I work with a lot of couples, helping them get the spark back in their relationship, and other things that just kind of happen. Long-term relationships have their own challenges, just like single folks do.
Sure, sure. We forget that sometimes, right?
That's right.
Good. Well, Allie, I know you're a busy lady, so I really appreciate your time and answering all of my questions thoroughly and thoughtfully. Um, I think I know I'm super excited to be joining your workshop starting the 26th, right?
That's right. January 26th.
And that is, again, for viewers, that's sexual and emotional intimacy. It's a 10-week.
Skills. Yes.
So really happy to be able to share that with DateSpot members and viewers. And I think that we will be getting a lot out of it. And I just will end by wishing everyone a wonderful 2021 full of love and great sex.
That's right. May you all have lots of pleasure this year.
All right. Thanks again, Ellie.
Thanks, Carla. It was such a joy to talk to you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.